My name is Alex, and I'm really happy and privileged to have opportunity to be here to share some very interesting session in terms of how you get funded for your business, right? So I have a great honor to have a few, wonderful experts to share a little bit, their expertise in terms of how they can support you as entrepreneurs, in every stage to get you funded, right, in terms of what you need to continue to scale, to grow or start your business. So without further ado, let's invite our special guests up here, experts. So start off, let's have Arnold up here, Arnold. And we have Francois and Maurice. Let's give it a round of applause here. All right.
Thank you.
So welcome to the session, how to secure capital in every stage. Like I kind of alluded earlier today, as I was beginning, at Alibaba.com, I got to work with all entrepreneurs. They are really hustling, in terms of growing their business, starting their business, and then they got this started. But at the same time, they often come to challenge the crucial question that how do I continue to raise capital to continue my growth, right? So today I really would like to take the opportunity to have three of you experts in different fields, and I'll give you guys the opportunity to introduce a little bit. But we'd love to see how funding looks different for each of you, right? In terms of how you can support them, and then also and then take a step from there, how the entrepreneurs can really leverage the different expertise your organizations can offer them from day-to-day perspective, right? So let's start out with Arnold. Would you like to maybe give a round of introduction about your background and your company? What do you do?
Not working.
Hello. Yeah, okay, this one is working fine. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. So I'm Arnaud Burgot, co-founder of Yuli.com. We are the biggest reward-based crowdfunding platform in France. We launched in 2010, so we have years of expertise in this domain. And so we've helped thousands of creators and entrepreneurs launch their activity, both in cultural sides and on entrepreneurial sides. So I'm quite expert in the beginning phase of a business.
Wonderful, thank you. Francois?
My turn. So I represent Plug and Play. Plug and Play, we are the largest venture capital in the world when it comes to early stage investment. So a bit just after you. So from C to Series A, we invest roughly in one startup per day those days, and we have around 3,000 in portfolio. And we also collaborate through a tool called Playbook with around 100,000 startups in the world.
Great. Well, Maurice?
Nice to meet you all. My name is Maurice Ain. Thank you for having me, Alex, a great friend of mine. And I see a couple of my friends here, David, and also the team at Pentatonic. On a high level, so I run a venture capital fund, which is managing $105 million at the moment right now. And the fund's mandate is to invest into seed stage and Series A stage companies. They're mostly business services or SaaS companies that have a recurring contractual type of business models. For me, my background, I spent the last basically 14 years in finance, in investment banking, to running my own private equity fund, to managing a tech company called SurveyMonkey as a CEO at one point. So now I'm also supporting my family business, which is in the real estate space in Hong Kong as well.
Great, amazing. So as you guys see, well, we got an amazing panel here with very impressive background, impressive organization, right, to here support you. So why don't we just dive right in, right? So Arnold, starting with you, right? Ulule crowdfunding, as you're focused on, right? It's often really kind of where the story begins for a lot of entrepreneurs. You guys work with probably thousands, right, if not tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, right? So what makes crowdfunding so effective for early stage founders, right? And especially during the kind of the product validation phase. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's a point with crowdfunding which is super important to understand. I often say that everybody understands the funding part of it because it's contained in the name, but it's the least interesting part of it. Because in fact, if you want to find funding, you have many, many other ways that are super effective, that may take less time, but that will bring only funding to you. When you do a crowdfunding campaign, you have to think about it as a marketing campaign, in fact. Because doing a crowdfunding campaign is putting your idea on the table, presenting your prototype, and trying to have people to pay in advance for it to exist. And so it's a way to have a direct feedback with what I call the truth of the banking card. Because when you pitch your idea to a friend, relative, or someone you meet, very often it's difficult to have, in my perspective, completely honest feedback. People are always, a bit reluctant about saying, well, maybe your idea is good, but I don't know. No, very frequently people say, yes, that's a great idea, the shake hands, etc., etc. It's a completely different story when you put your story online and try to have people to pay for it in advance. So you are going to have a real pre-test, a market validation, making sure that you secure enough funding before it even exists. And so if you succeed in that, it builds a great trust, because when you are going then in the other phases of your business to try, for example, to convince a VC, to convince a banker, to convince any possible partner, well, you do not just have a PowerPoint. You have a successful crowdfunding campaign with maybe hundreds, maybe 1,000 people who paid in advance for your idea to exist. So it's a real market test, and it's extremely powerful.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very important point, right? I think so. Crowdfunding essentially isn't just for capital. It's actually another important part. It's market validation, right? So you have a product, you have a prototype. I think it's an amazing opportunity to go out there, right? Test the product, test user feedback, and then you'll be able to reiterate that. So it's really the additional value to funding is that marketing, market validation, right? Great, thank you so much. Francois, plug and play, right? Essentially, you guys help startups kind of bridge to corporate partners, right? And global investors. And then I think this will be suitable for a lot of companies here they're established, but they're looking to scale. They're looking to go international, right? So how does accelerator like you, prepare them, right, for that step? And what signal tells you a startup is ready to grow and go to that stage?
I think that's a very interesting question, because knowing what's early stage is quite easy in the end. You understand you have your own market, you grow your product or service, and you develop slowly but steadily. But going abroad, going in an accelerator is a totally different game. And that's where Plug and Play offer is quite unique, because we don't only fund companies, we support them, we mentor them, and we find them commercial ways. And that's very important, because we collaborate with around 600 partners everywhere in the world. The biggest logo you can ever get. And the point, what you mentioned, market validation is important, but the capacity to scale and to go abroad and understand new markets with what you have is very, very important for us. So accelerator programs are actually mandatory for us, in our opinion, because you don't conquer Germany as you conquer France or Italy. And that's a bit the same for every type of product or services. And that's what we are offering. And that's also where we see the success rate of our startup. We invest early on, but ultimately we have more than 40 unicorns now in our portfolio.
How many?
I think around 40, probably a tiny bit less.
40. All right, maybe we got one out of here, right? It's pretty soon.
Hopefully, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And then I think to that point, right, I feel like connecting to the right ecosystem, right? Like accelerator is so important, right? Because they don't offer you only the money, but also the know-how. How do you be able to scale, right? So I think obviously if you're in that stage, right, with your business, I think that would be like an amazing, resource that you should tap into. Great, thank you. Maurice, so as we're talking about, once the founders have the market validation, they're ready to go scale, right? They also face the next challenge, right? How they can continue to scale their business, right, in multiple angles. So at Things Capital, right, your focus is really about get them business ready, right, to that next level. So can you talk a little bit how private equity, right, approach that, and what do you actually look for when deciding whether a company is truly ready to grow?
Yeah, I think ultimately, just fundamentally speaking, business models are just basically how you turn a quantitative amount of monetary value into more monetary value, basically. And the formula of success of building a successful business really stem from three forms of capital. And this is something I was very fortunate to learn from my grandfather, from our family business, but also spend the bulk of my life in private equity, identifying what is the right synergies and formula of building a successful company. And a successful formula is basically social capital. Basically, if you're building a business, a respective industry vertical, ideally you should have a good Rolodex of clientele to partners in their respective field. Number two would be, if you are someone that's young and maybe less experienced and less plugged into the industry, like who are the people that are high powered, that have strong political board presence in companies that are willing to vouch for you, giving you that connections, getting you access to influence. And last but not least is really financial capital. Not how much money you have in your bank account. It's basically how you as an investor, our job is to deploy capital, give you the capital, and your job is to put that into a business model where you will regurgitate and then synthesize into a business that will generate more capital, so we could, as investors, generate alpha for our investors, right? So basically, our job is to always to hone in, and my job is to empower the founder with all three forms of capital at all time. And the founder's perspective is always to work on those three forms of capital as a partnership with the VCs, basically.
Great. So in essence, from a private equity standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of be able to, once you're at that point, you'll be able to kind of provide this structure, right, operational excellence to really kind of get the large investor excited, right?
Yeah, a good way of like maybe if you listen to a lot of people in finance, the way they communicate is always very compartmentalized, always structured. There's like points to what you're making. There's summary to each point. And the point of it is to structuralize that from point A to point B and then benchmark that with metrics. That's what business is basically, ultimately. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. All right, so let's come back to you, Arnold. So back to Ulule. So for product-based founders here, right, that we have here, from your experience, what separates like a successful crowdfunding campaign, right, from the ones that fails to take off, right? And then how can they really use a campaign not only to raise funds, but also build this community, which I think is a very important aspect with Ulule. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I could talk about that in hours, so I'll try to make it short, maybe with three critical things. First of all, it's about communication. You should start communicating about your product or ID as soon as possible. The most frequent mistake that we can see is people who do not want to talk about it because they are afraid, oh, my ID is going to be taken by someone else. Well, if it's a good ID, you're not the only one to have it. So talk about it as soon as possible because it's how you're going to have feedback. This is how you're going to have partners. And this is how you are going to begin building the first network of potential clients. And so when you talk about it, as soon as someone seems interested, gets its email address. Very frequently, people, they begin talking about that on social networks. And well, social networks, it's great. It's super important, but the trends shift in social networks. And people who invested lots, for example, in Facebook, at the beginning of Facebook, now they lost all their network. So the critical thing is to get the email contact. And you can begin doing that day one of your ID and communicating, so it's the most critical thing to do. Once you begin communicating, you begin building your network. And so you have to understand that crowdfunding, it's work on relational circles. The first people who are going to back your projects are not people that never heard about you and just thinking that you have a great idea are going to put money on that. It doesn't exist, this kind of behavior. The only people who might decide day one to back you are people who already trust you. It means people who already heard about your ID, you are already in contact with, and that you already have their email address. So a successful crowdfunding campaign is always built on this first relational circle. So the strongest you are in terms of network already built, the further you may go, because you are going to have first backers, and then you have to, this is the third point, you have to work on the snowball effect. So you start your campaign with your already existing circle, people you send them an email to saying, okay, now my campaign is live, you already heard about that, I need you to back it immediately. And then in the next days, once they became backers, you are going to make them become ambassadors of your project and try to make them communicate about it to attract other people. And so that's all the snowball effect of a crowdfunding campaign, and you have multiple tactics to build that. But it would be a very long speech because it's. But our team, we have a team of experts who are our coach that help you on your crowdfunding campaign, and so we have various guides, various techniques to help you, particularly with this critical thing, which is how you make people become ambassadors on your campaign, and so to create this snowball effect.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. So actually, out of curiosity, who of you in this audience actually have used crowdfunding, or sites for your business to raise fund? Anyone?
No one experienced with that.
All
no.
right, all your potential clients.
That's great. Well, come to see us.
Yeah. No, but I think beyond crowdfunding, I feel like you touch a few important points, right? Communication, right, and building that trust. I think conceptually, that totally is so essential. But can you share a little more, like, from a execution standpoint? You had any tips, like how people can actually really do that in the right way? Because communication, I can get email.
Yeah, communication, it's a topic very general. So, but specifically for a crowdfunding campaign, you need to have, if you want to be a very successful campaign, now you need to have a video, a short video. All social networks have gone into video mode since a few years. So when we say short, it's a 1 minute to 2 minute video because now everybody shares with that. So, and you need to tell the story. Very frequently, people focus on the product, why it is a great product. But with such pitch, you do not bring anything emotional in it. And in a crowdfunding campaign, people are not investing in they are not going to earn money through that. So they're super happy to know that it's a great product, but they need also to know who you are, why you want to make it, what motivates you, because they need to have an emotional connection with you, because they are backing, of course, what you want to do, but they're also backing you. So you need to tell your story, and it's extremely important. And you need to encapsulate that in a very short pitch, because people, they do not read on the internet. So they are going to see the image of what you want to do. They are going to read the title and the subtitle, and they are going to look at the video. And you need to convince them with these key elements. So it needs to be very short and very efficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think my takeaway is that for those of you that already have products, I think telling that story is just as important, right? I think that doesn't apply for crowdfunding, but just in general, right? You have great product, wonderful, but how do you actually tell that story, be able to resonate, build that trust with your target audience? I think just equally important.
Yeah. And I think in business, communication is maybe what makes the majority of the success of a business. And very frequently we see people who have really great products that are great experts, in design, manufacturing, etc. But they do not have a communication mind, and they succeed much less than people who are really brilliant in communication. That's a pity, but that's the case. You need to be good in communication. It's critical.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. Thank you, Arnaud. Francois, let's talk about innovation. I mean, Plug and Play obviously is known for being a pioneer in that part, right? So can you talk about access to new technology, right, and partnerships? We see this as it's almost as important as funding today, right? Be able to innovate, be really stand out, right, as an entrepreneur. So from your perspective, what is the best way for founders here today to tap into those tech, those R&D or innovation ecosystem, right? Because, that's something not, I would say, usually easy to come across, right? From your perspective, what does it mean to be kind of innovation-ready type of businesses?
So I think it's, again, a very interesting question. Just from a historical standpoint, innovation was very linear for years and decades, and now we see an acceleration. We talk a lot about quantum, we talk a lot about AI, we talk a lot about all the other new technologies that will reshuffle the market. And yes, innovation is as important as funding, because think about it 2 seconds. What were the key innovations 5 years ago? I mean, I'm from the mobility space. We used to talk about hydrogen, about self-driving cars, about charging stations. Where are they now? Everything already changed in 5 years. Can you imagine what's going to be in the next 5 years? So that's the question as a funder that you need to ask yourself is, yes, funding, yes, good story, very important, but which innovation should I bring onto the market that I create this edge that the other they don't have? And how do I build it? We collaborate a lot with universities, R&D center, laboratories. Why do we do that? We do that because we want to be at the emergence of the innovation. Whenever there is a good idea, we want to be part of it. But on the other hand, it's hard to make an engineer become a very good CEO, and that you need to learn. And that's the role we take, because if we make good CEOs, then we will make good innovation. And that's also the whole point of how you become very innovation mature and how you bring the right innovation onto the market.
Yeah, no, and I think you touch on innovation in the sense that my takeaway is that, innovation when it comes to your product, right, your idea, I think that's important. But I think innovation in terms of the process, right? How can you innovate to make your product differentiate itself, right? Not from a design standpoint, not from a usage standpoint, right? But actually make it faster to the market, right? Or something that can actually bring to the users something unique experience, right? Through innovation. I think that's just equally important, right?
I can give a short example of what we do inside our accelerator. We have an accelerator in Germany, in Stuttgart, with all the automotive companies. We gather them around the table and say, okay, what's going to be the next innovation? And we work with more than 200 startups there to create the new innovation. And it can be a new braking system, but it can also be digital twins for painting. And that's how you iterate and you collaborate on innovation.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Maurice, as you know, Alibaba.com, we kind of focus on helping our suppliers to strengthen their supply chain, right? So, and then we talk about operational excellence. That's something that you focus a lot when you look at, okay, who that you should be focused on supporting. So, how much does that operational strength factor into your decision making? That's number one. And then number two, what other signs do you look at to tell, like, whether a product-based company specifically, right, is built for that long-term success that you'll be interested in funding?
I think whenever I'm meeting a founder for the first time, I'm always looking for a way, like, how they approach it. I think most of the time, like, I would never be in a position of pitching someone if I have not established great social capital or social rapport. It's almost like you're getting married to someone and you just met them for the first time, you're asking them for money, right? So I think it's about, like, how they approach it on a fundamental basis. And then something that I look for is, great, you have an idea, but how do you articulate the idea in a very simplistic manner? Because I think most of the time successful businesses are able to turn complexity into simplicity, and they benchmark that with metrics and numbers, so you feel de-risked. And as an investor, my job is to do what? I give you money, right? So as I give you the capital, how are you going to use it to spend it so you could make more money, right? So a lot of the things that I use is, like, even look at your presentations. Is it a bunch of words? Is there, like, a cohesive story? I think a good rule of thumb is, like, when you're building a pitch deck, think of like you're building a pitch deck for a three-year-old kids that happens to really love colors and pictures, but benchmark that with numbers. And then try it out. I have a sister that's not in the investment space, not in the finance space. She's studying to be a doctor, but she was actually in the art space at one point. So, and I also asked my mom, and I would basically get her advice, like, do you understand what I'm trying to tell you on the first try? And if she can kind of give you the feedback that she understands you at least 80% there, then you have something there. And then it's about building tractions. And as an investor, a big part of my job is always to be like the grandfather giving you advice on, like, okay, this is the problem that you have, this is the complexity that you have, let's distill this and break it down in pieces. And then my job is to give you capital, network, and also help you basically providing you leverage by giving you access to people that you need to support your business. And it's like kind of like a sparring session, like a partnership, right? I'm going to push you as you push me to build this together. That's why my job is called the managing partner, that I manage my team, but also my title is general partner, in basically partnering with founders to build a business upon going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Okay, I feel like we have still some time. I would love to take this opportunity to do some, like a fire round, right? Quick questions, and then we'd love to get your insights in each of this. So first of all, what's the biggest red flag you see when the founders pitch? Like what gives you a red flag right away?
For me, definitely, when there are too much things, you know, they want to do something plus something plus something plus something, and so to me it's a red flag because they say, okay, they're not thinking about their MVP, which is a very classical in entrepreneurship, minimum viable product. They're thinking about their ideal product, and it's super easy to think about the ideal product. But I often talk about entrepreneurship as a skill you need. It's to manage your frustration. You will have much more ideas than the real capacity and time you have to do it. So think about really the minimalistic product or service that you can put on the market to test if you have the possibility to be successful. And so to me, a red flag is someone coming with, you know, I want to do that. I say, okay, it's not mature. You have to make him think about that it's unrealistic and that he needs, you know, to shorten when he wants to launch a first thing.
François?
I'll get the wedding image because I liked it. The first one is the team because you marry the team for the best but also for the worst. And most of the startup is sometimes for the worst. So you need to be sure that you can guide the boat with those people. Second of all, is what you mentioned is the idea. The idea needs to be refined, simple and executable. And the third one that we also see sometimes is the market actually willing of your product or service. Sometimes you think you have a great idea, but actually the market doesn't care. So that's also something you need to be very well aware of.
Maurice?
Yeah, I'll keep it relatively simple. I think two things. One is lack of self-awareness. I understand some people can be shy and they can be timid or conversation is not like their strong suit, but it's about like how they show up fundamentally that gives you a good understanding of their character. That's a good human being. And then a big part of my job is always to trust the process, but verify. So if there's a lack of consistencies with like what you told me, and it's frankly, you know, inconsistent with what you promised me, I give you 2 tries. But once you lose that trust, you lost me forever. And the game of finance and investments and business is reputational capital. So if you mess that up, just know that I have a log in my head that I will remember you for it. And that's a bad thing. So knowing how you show up, build your relationship, be a good human being, ultimately.
Great insights. So the follow-up questions, how about on the flip side? What do you hear that gets you excited or get your attention when you do for a pitch, when you hear?
Well, definitely efficient pitch with good communication. And
But is there a specific metric or signal that, wow, okay, this is something that, all right, got my attention?
Now, to me, I would say it's maybe something which is more human side. I really appreciate people who are super smart, but also who have, you know, humility. And it can be, you know, in opposition, but not at all. You know, it's intellectual humility. They have lots of convictions, but when you question them, you know, you see that they really think about it and they really consider the questions because it shows that these are people who are open to reconsider what they think. And in entrepreneurship, it's absolutely crucial. You will have to switch so many times your business. You will have to switch your team. You will have to change your plans multiple times a year. And you need for that to have a lot of, you know, psychological flexibility. And to have psychological flexibility, you need to have intellectual humility. So it's a quality I definitely look for to see if it's a person which is really fit to be an entrepreneur.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, the same. In a nutshell, people who understood the rules of the game before starting it, because it's a very, very complex work. And I like the humility part because it's such a tough job that you need to be flexible and intellectually ready to change your mind and be convinced. So I like this approach.
Maurice?
Yeah, I think a fundamental good trait of a successful anyone is a great, clear, succinct communicator. Someone that can articulate ideas clearly and someone that have strong self-awareness of how they communicate in the way that someone can digest information very clearly. A lot of people are not able to do that. I understand because it's not easy. And I would say parenting in terms of communication is not a skill that was ingrained in us. So someone that has that is a rarity in business. But also someone that has great energy naturally, because you do need that push, that natural firepower to make things work. So,
great. All right, we got 1 minute left. So very, very, very quick one. So what would be the most underrated, funny advice that you give to the audience here that they should be really following or looking into?
Learn to manage your frustration. I already said that, but it's crucial. People do not think much about that before going into entrepreneurship, but the most rare resource you will have is your time. And if you are in a possibly successful business, you are going to have too much good ideas, too much opportunities. So manage your frustration. You will be able to perform one thing out of 10 ideas. And it's difficult to learn to manage this frustration, definitely.
Surround yourself with smarter people than you. They will give you good advice and they will tell you when to stop.
Yeah, good advice would be, again, going back to my formula, build social capital upfront before pitching someone. So how do you do that is to seek people's advice. Because seeking people's advice always makes people feel good because they feel valued. But also in ways, you're not just selling something by stuffing some down someone's throat. You're asking for a collaborative experience. So eventually, by working it together, they also see you as a partner. That eventually they want to be like, oh, I'd love to join you on this journey. Let me commit in you financially. Does it make sense? That's how the fundamental fundraising game works.
Awesome. Our time's up, but that was some amazing conversation we just had. I hope you guys have some great